And anybody, I don't understand it. I guess they get behind that kind of logic. They want to with people, screw them, because they're unhappy about something. He's such a mean, nasty, hateful person. I'd never play him as an actor.
De Niro turns around and he's like, Schneider, how could you support that schmuck? Trump is a schmuck. I looked right at him and I said, I love you.
Rob Schneider just took a surprisingly sharp jab at fellow actor Robert De Niro, and he didn't mince words. Speaking as the headliner at a recent event, Schneider called out De Niro for what he sees as relentless attacks and exaggerated mockery of President Donald Trump. He joked that he still loves De Niro, but said it's time for the Hollywood icon to shake off what he called Trump derangement syndrome and approach things with a bit more objectivity. Buckle up, things get interesting.
A temporary experiment in freedom in human history, where freedom for the individual was enjoyed by only a relatively few people for a brief 249 years before society returned to another form of feudalism and slavery. I hope not. But it is not guaranteed. When they say eternal vigilance, that means we must be awake, we must be aware.
So that seemingly harmless speech was what ignited the entire brouhaha between Rob Schneider and Robert De Niro. Schneider's remarks weren't delivered with anger or hostility, they were more of a gentle reminder wrapped in a serious message. He stressed that freedom isn't just an American privilege, but a universal principle that deserves protection everywhere. In Schneider's view, the moment a society lets even one freedom slip, a domino effect begins. He said he's watched it happen in other countries, nations crumbling after trading liberty for control, and warned that the same fate can befall anyone who grows complacent. That's why, he argued, safeguarding freedom isn't optional, it's essential. Americans, he said, shouldn't take their rights for granted, because once a freedom disappears, history shows it rarely returns. And it was this message, more than anything, that sparked the tension between the two Hollywood figures.
You know, working in Hollywood, you live and you work amongst all of these individuals that do not like Trump. They're Democrats. We knew that through the election. They voiced their opinions. Robert De Niro was one of those. And I know you were at the 50th anniversary of SNL. Y'all were in the audience, and they asked anyone who had been on the show or hosted the show to come up on stage. And Robert De Niro was standing in front of you. Someone pushed you into him, probably on purpose, so you'd have that interaction. And you were confronted with him. This is how you described that moment.
De Niro turns around and he's like, Schneider, how could you support that schmuck? Trump is a schmuck. I looked right at him and I said, I love you. I love you. I swear to God, he looked right at me and went like, okay.
Schneider's approach, in many ways, was the perfect counter to someone who delivers criticism with that much vitriol. He responded with calm and affection rather than rage. He made it clear that no one is pretending Donald Trump is flawless. Like any political figure, Trump deserves criticism when he gets things wrong, and Schneider acknowledged that openly. But what he pushed back against was the tone of the criticism, the relentless anger, the simmering hatred, and the personal attacks dressed up as political commentary. That, he felt, was where the line had been crossed. In Schneider's view, there's a real difference between holding a leader accountable and obsessively tearing them down with venom. When criticism becomes more about emotional fury than factual debate, it stops being useful and starts poisoning the national conversation. That was the core of his message: disagree as fiercely as you want, but don't let hatred eclipse reason.
Culture, they're better at it than us. It's got to be through love.
That is so beautiful. Instead of arguing with him, which is what they want, you just said, I love you.
Well, I do. I love him. And look, it's got to come through love. And it's true. And if, the Bible says you don't get a reward for loving your brother. You get a reward for loving people who are your enemy, or people who, and he's not my enemy. I love him, and he's angry. And the way to really do this and to confront this.
I really admire what Schneider did because it highlights a truth many people forget. You can't out-cancel the cancel mob. You can't fight outrage with more outrage. What you can do is respond with grace, calm, measured, and even loving, no matter how sharp the disagreements feel. Schneider's message wasn't an empty call for unity, it was a reminder that political differences shouldn't turn us into enemies. We're all part of one national family, and families don't fall apart just because they argue, at least, they shouldn't. Politics was never meant to divide neighbors, friends, and coworkers into bitter camps that despise each other. It's meant to be a conversation, not a battlefield. Schneider's response captured that perfectly: disagree passionately, debate fiercely, but never lose sight of our shared humanity.
We want to use the word triggered or whatever, but we have to meet them in some other way than just with the same kind of anger or whatever. And I do, and I'm telling you, I respect him as an actor and as a person, and I know that he's helped the autistic community, the kids, parents who have autistic kids, and on a movie years ago. And I do it, and it's interesting because when you come from a place of love, and brotherhood, then you really can't, it doesn't advance to that next.
What really stood out was the way Schneider spoke about De Niro. Even though the two are on opposite ends of the political spectrum, he didn't dismiss him, insult him, or ignore his legacy. Instead, Schneider went out of his way to acknowledge De Niro's accomplishments, recognizing decades of iconic performances and the impact he's had on Hollywood. His praise was genuine, even effusive, despite their near-constant political disagreements. That's exactly the kind of attitude we need more of today. You don't have to share someone's politics to appreciate their talent, respect their contributions, or treat them with dignity. Schneider demonstrated that it's possible to challenge someone's ideas without tearing down the person behind them, a rare reminder in a climate where disagreement often becomes dehumanization. His approach was a refreshing model for how political opponents could, and should, be treated.
Continued discourse, and that's what Frank Turek was there to do. My good friends, professors, Dr. Andrew Doyle and Professor Peter Boghossian, we were there to discuss things with kids, and we said what Charlie Kirk said. And the only reason I was there at Berkeley was because with Charlie Kirk, and I said to him, let's go to the place that's the most challenging. And he said, well, we're going to go to Berkeley then. And it was challenging, but I wish it was challenging in a way that was really what this country is set to do, which is free speech. And Berkeley is the home of free speech. Yeah. And yet all of a sudden, that was the place where free speech on campus was really enshrined.
Yes, free speech is firmly enshrined in our Constitution, and it's something we must protect under all circumstances. It's not a luxury or a mere decoration, it's the foundation that supports every other freedom. But defending free expression doesn't always mean fighting fire with fire. Sometimes the most powerful way to protect it is by responding with patience, even with kindness, toward those who would rather silence us. There will always be people who seek to restrict speech simply because they disagree or feel certain voices shouldn't be heard. Meeting them with hostility only strengthens their narrative. Meeting them with respect, however, exposes the weakness of censorship itself. By refusing to mirror their intolerance, we uphold the very principle we're trying to preserve, that everyone, even our critics, deserves the right to speak. That's how freedom not only survives, but thrives.
Somebody now can silence another group of people and prevent people from getting in. We could have sold that place out 3 times, and it was completely sold out, but yet they were not allowed, and the university could have done a better job of allowing people, helping them to usher the kids in to come see us. But those brave kids, I want to thank all the Turning Point USA kids at Berkeley for being courageous and coming in spite of the negativity.
The UC Berkeley students showed up in full force because they believed in something simple yet powerful: no one should be silenced for their beliefs. They weren't defending a particular ideology, they were defending the principle that every person has the right to speak their mind without fear of being shut down. To them, open expression is the backbone of any free society, and once you start censoring one group, it's only a matter of time before everyone becomes a target. They made it clear that if someone crosses a legal line, the justice system should handle it. Crimes deserve consequences, but silencing people simply because their opinions are unpopular or because they argue is far more dangerous than any viewpoint itself. Their turnout sent a clear message: freedom of speech isn't negotiable, and it's worth defending every single time.
Biden versus Trump. We want to live in a world that we want to live in and enjoy living in, or live in a nightmare. Vote for Trump and you'll get the nightmare. Vote for Biden and we'll be back to normalcy.
Yeah. So why is Trump winning? I mean, the New York Times poll this week came out, and maybe this will change it with the State of the Union address, but Trump was beating him rather soundly. It was quite a warning light, 48-43, also winning way more among women than he had before, winning outright Latinos. What do you attribute that to?
I don't know. I just don't want to feel the way I did, and many of us don't, after the election in
This stands in stark contrast to how Rob Schneider handled his encounter with De Niro. Schneider approached the situation with nuance, respect, and even a touch of affection. De Niro, by contrast, took a much more blunt path when discussing Trump's impact on American politics. Rather than considering the broader implications or engaging in thoughtful critique, he painted a one-dimensional picture, labeling Trump a nightmare. His comments were full of frustration and disdain, leaving little room for constructive dialogue. Schneider, on the other hand, emphasized perspective, urging people to look beyond personal animosity and consider the bigger picture. De Niro's approach reflects a common tendency in Hollywood to reduce complex political realities to caricatures, prioritizing emotion over reason. Schneider's response was measured, focusing on principles rather than personal attacks. The comparison highlights two very different ways of engaging with political disagreement, one fueled by contempt, the other grounded in respect and reflection.
The guy is a total monster. And anybody, I don't understand it. I guess they get behind that kind of logic. They want to with people, screw them, because they're unhappy about something. He's such a mean, nasty, hateful person. I never play him as an actor, because I can't see any good in him. Nothing at all, nothing redeemable in him. And we have to, and whoever the people are who want to vote for him, and there look like intelligent people around there, for some reason.
Even those who voted for Trump weren't immune to the relentless vitriol directed at him. The attacks didn't just target his actions or policies, they often extended to anyone who supported him, creating an environment where political disagreement felt personal and unforgiving. This isn't about asking everyone to like Trump or agree with him on everything. That would be unrealistic. No leader is universally loved or perfect. But it's fair, and should be expected, that people at least acknowledge his achievements when they occur. Trump isn't right all the time, far from it, but he has had moments where his decisions produce tangible results. Recognizing those successes doesn't diminish anyone's principles or opinions, it simply reflects honesty and balance in a political climate dominated by hate and hyperbole. Even a small nod to objectivity goes a long way. Rob Schneider's approach to the De Niro incident offers a refreshing lesson in handling political disagreements today. Instead of responding with anger or personal attacks, he spoke with respect, acknowledging De Niro's accomplishments while standing firm in his own beliefs. He emphasized that freedom of speech is universal and must be protected, not through outrage, but through reasoned dialogue and even love toward those who disagree. Schneider highlighted the importance of recognizing facts and achievements where they exist, regardless of political affiliation, and encouraged treating opponents with dignity in a time when vitriol dominates both politics and culture. His message reminds us that disagreement doesn't require dehumanization. By engaging thoughtfully, respecting differences, and valuing shared principles, we can preserve freedom, encourage dialogue, and rise above the toxic cycle of hate that so often divides us. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.